Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the meeting of the Council of North Norfolk District Council on Wednesday, the 23rd of April. And thank you very much for coming in for this extraordinary meeting. Do we have any apologies for absence?
Yes, we do. We have Councillor Dixon, Councillor Tillett, Councillor McDonald, Councillor Hunter, Councillor Heinrich.
Okay, thank you very much. And do we have any declarations of interest from anyone today?
Can I just check we have apologies from Liz Withington? Oh, sorry. Can we add those to the list? She gave her apologies by email earlier on. Thank you.
Anyone else? Because I appreciate it was short notice. That's
Also, could you mention Councillor Vickers?
right. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Is that all? Thank you.
Just in regards to the pavement licence, I'm a trustee of a charity that does hold a pavement licence.
Thank you. Any others? Councillor Penfold.
Yes, thank you. Same for me, trustee of a charity that holds such a licence.
Wow. Carol.
And me as well. I hadn't
Oh.
even thought about that. Well, thank
Anyone?
you.
Anyone else? Do we have any items of urgent business?
None.
Thank you. Straight to the substantive meat of the agenda for today. So item number 4, the addition of the budget to the capital programme for the procurement of vehicles and containers for a weekly food waste collection service. Councillor Ringer, would I be correct in?
That will be me. Thank you. Thank you, Chair, and happy St George's Day, everybody. This paper seeks Council's approval to add funding to the capital programme for 25-26 to enable the procurement of vehicles and containers required for the introduction of a separate weekly food waste collection service in line with national legislation. Government funding has been allocated under the new burden scheme as set out in the paper in order to support this requirement. However, as has been the case nationally, both previous Conservative government and the current Labour administration have underestimated the true cost of delivering these reforms. North Norfolk District Council did make representations directly to DEFRA and through the DCN, but this fell on deaf ears, both with the last government and the current one, as they made their minds up of what they wanted to do. The majority of the expenditure relates to the purchase of the 7.5-tonne vehicles and internal kitchen and curbside caddies, and our updated estimates is that we will require between 10 and 12 vehicles. Based on the current projections, officers anticipate a shortfall of up to £500,000 between the funding awarded and the actual cost of procurement. This paper therefore seeks to cover that shortfall through the use of environmental health reserves, which currently sits at 542,848. Although I'd reassure members that this reserve is expected to be replenished through other sources of funding, including extended producer responsibility payments, the first of which is just over £800,000 and is due in November. There may also be opportunities to use the Innovation Fund to support the rollout, and we are also anticipating further new burdens funding, which will be designed to fund the revenue costs of running the service. We do not yet know how much that will be at this stage. While this paper is in reality a fairly mundane procedural step, it does underpin the most significant change to waste collection services in North Norfolk in over a quarter of a century. Compliance with the government simpler recycling legislation is required by April next year, and early procurement is essential to ensure that vehicle build slots and avoid predicted delays due to supply chain pressures. With the last new burdens funding having arrived in March and no scheduled full council other than the annual meeting in May until June, it is key that we agree to this additional funding today so as to avoid any further delay. With the likelihood of those escalating costs as a result of the rush to market, we simply cannot afford to wait longer. I'm pleased to say that in the delivery of this, we do now have a project manager and a new environmental services manager in post who are working hard on the movement of delivery of this project. As this project advances, there will be a lot of opportunities for member scrutiny, and I anticipate a dedicated members briefing similar to the one that we had last year with the rollout of the reroute, which was very well attended. and that will be arranged at the appropriate stage. Operational questions, and I know that members will have these, will therefore probably be best addressed as we move closer to the implementation, as these things become clearer. Until we have the vehicles on order, these questions are really hypothetical, so we just need to get on and order those, and then we can have those discussions. And in addition, I will ask officers to circulate later on an LGA briefing, which was brought to my attention yesterday, on the changes, which might be of interest on the broader changes nationally. But in summary, this paper provides an essential step in assuring that we can get on with the procurement, closing the funding gap, and ensuring we can do all within our power to meet the deadline to introduce these services. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Brilliant. 2 for 1. That's very good. Thank you. Any questions? Councillor Cushing?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I have some concerns about this. I mean, it says we may need between, we don't have the exact number of vehicles that we actually would need to buy. Have we actually calculated how much waste we think would be generated per household across North Norfolk? And I'm considering the fact that in North Norfolk, you have plenty of households which will use composting, unlike rural areas. And I can think of plenty in my own area where I actually live as well. I think that would be helpful to know. Also, I mean, are you actually contacting neighbouring councils like Broadland District Council, for example, who have been doing food waste collection in their urban areas for quite some time now, to get some information from them about capacity?
Thank you. So I do anticipate that, as Councillor Cushing says, there will be people who compost. There'll be an awful lot of people who won't be able to. Ultimately, we have got to roll this service out. It is legislation as set by the previous government and the current one. In terms of what the anticipated generation of food waste is, we did have some report conducted last year, which I believe gave us an indicative figure. I don't have it to hand, but I'm happy to. And that was a piece of work that was done in conjunction with Breckland Council as well. So it wasn't with Broadland, but it was Breckland, who obviously are part of the joint waste contract that we operate. But I'm happy to get the actual figure of the anticipated waste that I think ultimately there will be a lot of people that compost. I think we've also probably got a lot of people who would diligently use their food waste bin as well. So it will remain to be seen until we roll it out exactly how much that will be. But I'm happy to get the estimated tonnage if that is a benefit.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Paterson?
Thank you, Chair. Evening all. I was going to ask, what is demand? Are we able to actually opt out? I wouldn't want this, and I don't need the 2 caddies delivered. So I understand you say you've got to roll it out, but are we able to actually opt out so I don't have 2 bits of plastic delivered that I don't need or will use? The CapEx, are you not able to arrange a deal and pay when you take delivery so we can hang on to the money and earn interest on it? And also, where is the waste going to go? If it's in 7.5 ton trucks, is it going to get tipped out and reloaded and then carted off further? And then you touched a little bit on running costs. I just wondered if you'd thought about whether there's going to be a gate, you're expecting to pay a gate fee for the food waste. Thank you.
I'll try and remember all those questions, so please nudge me if I don't. The market will dictate on whether there's a gate fee or whether we actually receive an income from it. So that will fluctuate according to demand. They're 7.5 ton vehicles. We expect that there will be a tipping point more locally, although that is work that was still to be carried out. One of the things that we did not get through from New Burdens funding is any funding towards things like depots, additional space that we might require for that. But we obviously do tip our general waste and our recycling in North Walsham as a transfer point before it then gets taken in larger vehicles elsewhere. And do we have to have one? I mean, it's a universal service that we have to provide. I don't know whether there will be a mechanism for you to opt out, but I suspect that every household will be issued with a plastic caddy, and that will remain as part of the property. Ultimately, if you were to move out of your house, your person who buys it possibly will want to. So they will be issued to every household. I will see if there's any mechanism for you to not have one, Councillor Patterson. But I don't at this stage think that that's, I mean, we have to offer it to everybody. You can't opt out of having a recycling bin, for example. You might not put much in it, but that's up to you.
Councillor Patterson, did you have another question?
Well, it was my third question. Second, sorry. CapEx, are we not able to arrange a deal and pay for when we take delivery?
I believe that is, we may have to have some capital outlay to start with, but I don't think we will be paying the full balance until we take delivery. That's my understanding. I might be incorrect, but I'm happy to find that point out.
Thank you. Thank you.
Councillor Fitzpatrick.
Yeah, thank you. I do agree with Councillor Ringer that this is something that the government should fund. I was critical of the last government for not funding it, and that's one reason it was never introduced sooner, and equally critical. But what I am unhappy about is that we're digging into our own reserves to pay for vehicles as well. And is there not any mechanism where, I mean, once a week trundling around the rural parts of North Norfolk sounds an awful lot of wasted carbon, particularly when some of the houses, a lot of people be composting, and it essentially be an empty uplift. But more importantly is that in section 2.3, it says, and DEFRA allocated further £358,867.50. I'm sure that 50 pence will be very useful. But it's for the project management, communications and caddy delivery. And the communication I'd like to see is actually some sort of campaign to actually waste less food, because the amount of food wasted in this country is actually, it's shameful and it's close on immoral. It's over 30% of the food that's bought in shops and supermarkets. And maybe that communications campaign should be communications to use less. And the best thing would do actually if these trucks trundled around and were effectively empty, because people used less and wasted less. But I still think once a week seems too much. So I would suggest buying fewer vehicles and doing a smaller number of runs. Just buy it according to what the government's given us on the new burden. Thank you.
Thank you. I mean, I tend to agree with you. That the situation is that we have a duty to collect weekly. So that's a non-negotiable, as much as the solution that you suggest of going round perhaps slightly less frequently might sound like an attractive option, and it would be cheaper and more environmentally friendly. That is, the government have said we have to collect food waste weekly. So that ultimately puts us in a position where we have to collect it weekly, because that's what we're being told we have to do. I completely agree with you on reducing food waste, but just waste in general, actually. And I think that all of our communications and anything that we can use from, for example, the Innovation Fund should be about reducing waste. It's something that I'm particularly passionate about. And I think that if you, I don't think anything much should be going in your residual bin. You know, I think that we should be recycling and reusing as much as we possibly can. Coming down the line in 2027, we will be required to collect plastic film. So that is your soft plastics, which usually say on them, please recycle with a carrier bags in the supermarket. So that will be a curbside commitment we will have to make going forward. So that's another thing that will be coming out of your residual waste bin. Ultimately, going forward, I hope that very little is going in your residual waste bin, because it's food or it's recycling. So I will definitely take that away, and I'm very, very keen that we run a campaign to reduce all streams of waste.
Just very briefly, yeah, thanks for that, Councillor Ringer. I just wonder if we were to buy just the number of vehicles we could afford from the money the government's given, I think a lot of these vehicles are going to be trundling around empty, and if they're like Councillor Patterson, there aren't caddies out. It might, if we buy the full amount to do this round, I reckon we will actually have too many vehicles, and I'd rather have to buy a couple after the implementation date, because they've trundled round empty, which I think they will do in areas like mine where lots of people compost and do it. And I think thought should be given to that, because I can't really support going going into using our money to pay for something the government should do, when I think actually we will end up with too many vehicles, and I think that should be looked at more closely.
I'm very happy to look at that point. At the moment, we're trying to get that number down. Just for comparison, my understanding is Breckland have procured 13. And we're looking obviously toward between 10 and 12. So we would be fewer than them in any case, hopefully. You know, we will try and make these rounds as efficient as possible. One thing that we do not do as councillors is to actually design the route. And that is something that the contractors have done with mixed success in the past, but more successfully lately, obviously. And so we would look to make those as efficient as possible. And we will ultimately, we don't want to be in a business of buying vehicles we don't need. We want to buy as few as possible to do the job that we are required by government to do.
Councillor Housden?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Can I just consider paragraph 3.3 in the context of buying the new vehicles? The current fleet was purchased in 2019, which is 6 years ago. And I see vehicles coming down the road that are looking pretty ropey. So I'm wondering, do we have any contingency for the replacement of existing vehicles before we start looking at sort of sums that we've got to lay out for the new vehicles? And as Councillor Fitzpatrick has said, do we have a budget for communications? Because this is going to be significant communication rollout to the residents of North Norfolk.
Sorry, was that?
So the 2 points really are, do we have any contingency for replacement of the existing vehicles, given that these are now purchased in 2019 and we're 6 years on from there? The second point is really, what about a major communication process that's going to educate residents of North Norfolk?
So on the communications, we have been allocated £97,485 by DEFRA for marketing and communications to this project. So that funding is already there, allocated, and will be used for that very specific purpose. The matter of the existing fleet, which is used for recycling and refuse and garden waste collections, for example, is a sort of separate one. I don't have the exact figures, but my understanding is the vehicles were designed to last for the life of the contract, and I believe would be insured up to that point as well. But I'm happy to take that one offline if that's
I think that's an
helpful.
important point, because if we've got to lay out, you know, we should have to replace any vehicles during this period, that is still going to be a significant sum of money. May I come back with another, just a separate question? The figures you've got for 105 to 112,000 per vehicle, obviously we're going to be looking at increased costs with what's happening globally. Do you have contingency figures worked into that, or is that sort of raw cost?
Those are with built-in expectations that the costs will inflate by around 5%.
By 5%?
That's what's anticipated. So it's still an indicative cost at the moment. The other thing is that we are buying at a larger scale. We're not just purchasing one single vehicle. We do anticipate that because there is this is being rolled out nationally, that there will be increased demand and there could well be an escalation in costs. That's part of the reason we're here today, is to make sure that we can press go as soon as possible. If we wait till the next council meeting in June, then those figures may well be more inflated. So it's key that we basically just get on and get these vehicles on order.
Fine. Okay. Thank you.
Councillor Penfold, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, I find myself in the position of agreeing with a lot of Councillor Fitzpatrick's comments. It's not something I've said very often in here. Pretty much my question was asked by Councillor Houghton, but just on I think that education campaign is really important, actually critical. I noticed that the vehicles are able to run on hydro-treated vegetable oil, which is good to see. So that's part of that education campaign, I would think, as well, because people might assume that you're running on diesel, for example. So I think there's different levels to that campaign when it goes out there.
I mean, there is a wider aspiration to run the entire waste fleet on HVO. but that is more costly than diesel, and that is something that we'll be weighing up before anything comes to council or cabinet for agreement on that particular point. Just touching on an environmental theme, I think that it's regrettable that the government's funding allocation for vehicles does not give us much in the way of scope for investigating and being innovative with advanced technologies and fuels. Although they are able to run on HVO, national government want us to be a net zero authority by a certain date. And they're also not giving us the tools with which to make that happen. And that's a broader problem across local government, as I'm sure everyone is aware.
Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Good evening, everybody. This takes me back a few years. I remember racking up an overview and scrutiny and asking a question when where we're going to get food waste collections, because the then portfolio holder for the environment, Councillor Nigel Lloyd, convinced me that it was absolutely necessary to do this, and I congratulate the previous government for particularly post EU after Brexit, of grasping the importance of their duty and responsibilities towards enhancing the environment across our shores and here in North Norfolk particularly. I think what we perhaps have lost a little bit of sight of in these papers is that the end game of this process is to curtail greenhouse gases, stop food going into landfill, where it produces enormous quantities of methane, which is not good for our planet in any way, shape or form. And it was a game changer, I was told by the portfolio at the time, that it would give a boost to our recycling rates. It would take us probably from whatever we are in the 40%. My colleague, Councillor Varley, will correct me if I've got that wrong, and probably put us into the lower 50% recycling rates. So the end game is to look after our planet for the future, to prevent methane or minimise so far as we possibly can. And I'm pleased that, having waited for 3 or 4 years for this day to come, that the government are beginning to move on it. Regrettable that perhaps they're not funding it as well as they might do, but we learn to live with that. That is true of a lot of services that are funded by central government towards this council. But I welcome this. And if you're looking for a seconder, Madam Chairman, I'm quite happy to second.
Very generous of you. Thank you. Do we have any more questions? Councillor Mancini Boyle.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I seem to remember when the original contract was allocated, I think we've probably only got about 6, maybe 7 years left on the foreseeable lifespan of the vehicle. So whichever government's in power at the time is going to get a nasty bill in maybe 7 years' time. And it seems to me, if I was in business, I would probably maybe take a delivery of maybe 5 vehicles with an option to buy another 6, I believe it probably would be. And then to trial those 5 vehicles and just see what the uptake on, and monitor the situation to see exactly how much food waste we are actually picking up. Because as everyone seems to be heading towards, we may be buying more vehicles than we need. And I don't know if you can buy them on Auto Trade a second hand, but I think they're probably a little bit difficult to offload. So I just think that would be a sensible sensible thing to do.
It might be sensible, but we're not allowed. We're just going to have to roll this out universally to everybody. If we had the luxury of time and we were in a position where we thought we would trial something, then I'd perhaps agree with you that that would be a sensible way forward. We don't have the luxury of time. We have to roll this out next year and we have to offer to everybody.
Okay, anybody else have any points to make? Councillor Netherway?
Thank you, Chair. I've sort of gone through the figures on the form, which are very carefully laid out. Thank you. I managed to misread them, but I've been corrected. I understand that the balance will be coming of circa 500,000 from the Environmental Health Reserve. Can you give council any assurances that the reason for the reserve being put there in the first place is not going to be affected by this?
This is the biggest change to environmental services provision in North for quarter of a century. If the reserve is not there to make up the shortfall for circumstances like this, then when is it? Ultimately, it's a situation we've been put in. That reserve in this instance is acting as a bit of an insurance policy in terms of being able to make up that shortfall. Is it regrettable we've had to go into the reserves to meet the shortfall? Yes, it definitely is. Do we have much of another choice? Not really. We are, as a council, I think, in a better position than some of our neighbours who are looking to have to perhaps redivert funds that were already assigned for other projects. And that is something that I've seen for, I think Great Yarmouth has mentioned having some pressures against their CCTV funding, for example, and I'm sure that they won't be alone. The fact that this is not coming from anything that's been earmarked for anything else, we're not having to cut anything to be able to roll out this service, puts us in a better position than them. But it is nonetheless regrettable that we have got this shortfall and we have to find the money from somewhere.
Councillor Patterson, got a quick question?
Thank you. Just, you said we don't have time. This is April 26th. We need to implement. Do we not have time to put we've got a whole year. Do we not have time?
We think that the lead out for the vehicles is at least 12 months. I'm being completely honest with you. The fact that almost every council in the country is having to procure vehicles means that there is going to be a rush to market and there's going to be a delay. There's absolutely no doubt about that. We don't have the luxury of time. If we had the luxury of time, we wouldn't be here all tonight. We'd have waited till June. It's just something that is being to some extent forced upon us by central government, that mean we have got to get on and do this now, but they have created the bottleneck as well. So they've created the demand and they've created the issues. So it's regrettable. And, you know, if they had given us a couple of years to do this, then maybe we would be looking at rolling this out in a phased way, or maybe we would be looking at doing this as some sort of trial and seeing how things were. We are told that we have to do by government and we are going to get on and do it.
Okay, Councillor Housden, one more
Thank you,
one more
Chair.
question from Councillor. Is it really important, Luke?
Well, I was just what to follow up. That was all.
Because I know that Officer Blatch also wants to speak, so I was wondering if we could move on back to Councillor Housden and then perhaps in the hope of wrapping this up, have Officer Blatch just summarise things. Councillor Housden.
Is it possible to pare the numbers back to the minimum? Because, you know, 2 vehicles, if it's 10 or 12, 2 vehicles is the best part of £250,000. And if we could pare back to 10 vehicles, surely it would be rather more palatable. And I just wonder what's driving the number of between, well, it's 12 and 14 in the papers, but you've quoted 10 and 12 in the meeting.
Can I just break in here? I think if Officer Blatch wants to say something that might clarify things, if that'd be okay.
Thank you, Chairman. So I don't want to intervene in the debate itself, and that's for Councillor Ringer to respond to any questions that you have in that regard. The decision that is in front of you this evening is to approve a capital budget within the council's financial budget. Paragraph 2.6 says that there will be a subsequent decision that needs to be taken by Cabinet around the procurement process itself. So this is to establish a budget beyond which it isn't really possible to prepare that paper for Cabinet if there isn't a cost envelope that is established. At the present time, this sum of money is not in your capital programme, and that's the recommendation before you this evening. I hope that provides clarity.
So Fredericks.
I simplified it earlier because I like simple things. The fact that we're moving the 500,000 from our savings account into our joint account where we can actually use it quickly. So that's the decision on the table this evening. So I hope that helps.
Is everyone now content that with the decision we're about to make? Yes. I mean, I think it's been a useful debate, actually, quite frankly, and even though it's not procurement we're discussing today, I think it's fleshed out some important facets. I mean, I would be comfortable that that was the upper limit that we're approving and there was a possibility of spending less. That would make me feel more comfortable. Yeah, okay. This has been kindly proposed and seconded, so we can proceed to the vote. So all those in favour? 23. You got the number? Okay, 23. All those against? And all those abstaining? Okay, 9. Okay, lovely. Okay. So we'll move on to item 5. Move on to item 5, the Rural England Prosperity Fund. Councillor Shires, or is it Councillor Toy? Okay, thank you to Councillor Toy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good evening, everybody. Much shorter introduction from me. This is money from central government that has come in too late to be in the capital budget when we set it. They only announced it on the 27th of March. It is a 1-year extension of the Rural England Prosperity Fund. And so this is just to approve that we put that money into our capital programme so that we can get on and spend it as we did with the last lot and get it out the door. So I'm happy to propose that we put this money into our capital budget for delivering out to our communities as we did before, as was shown at view and scrutiny. Thank you.
Councillor Adams.
I simply wanted to speak to second Councillor Toy's proposal, and of course say we've had a good record of delivery here previously, over and above many other areas. I'd say it's disappointing actually that we were promised, I think, a lot more from Brexit, and of course this was supposed to be replacement EU funding, and that's already being reduced. But we will make the absolute most of this funding for our local businesses, communities and economy. So just wanted to say that and second the proposal. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do we have any questions on this? Councillor Fitzpatrick?
I'm all in favour of getting money from the government. Is there any thought the government might push any more money our way in this financial year, or is this likely to be the last gasp? And I think it says somewhere not accepting this would be not worthy of consideration. I'd agree with that, but I think we've got to keep pushing the government for money because they are starving rural areas in a way that we haven't seen for a long time, and as we've seen, delivering services in rural areas is difficult, and the levels of deprivation are much more hidden. So I think I'll be voting in favour of taking this money, but I'd ask the Cabinet to be pushing for more money as we go up further down the line.
Yeah, I mean, we will continue to find funds wherever we can. We take this and match fund it where we can. We're working with county to see where we can join up with them. So we will get the very maximum we can out of this, as we've shown we can do in the past. I'm always looking for funding opportunities, and there's one today that I hope to share with people that's come out for farmers and innovation grants. So I've alerted my team, and once we've got the shape of that, I'll share that with people, because that won't come through us. It's administered elsewhere, but we're always looking for those opportunities to bring to our communities. But thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Cushing?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'm delighted that we've got more money. I just wondered if Councillor Toy has any idea, any projects that actually might be spent on?
Not specifically. We're obviously shaping that. We are looking at our towns because they supply our hinterland as well. And that's where we're starting to share some work with the county council, because they're already looking at our towns as well. So, but as we bring that forward, I'll make sure that members are alert to what's available and what we're doing. And yeah, I'm excited to get this done and get it out the door, because I don't want a penny going back to government as we didn't last time. Thank you.
Is that everyone said their piece? Lovely. We can go. It has been proposed and seconded. We can go to the vote. Everyone in favour? Nope. Lovely. That's unanimous. Thank you very much. The next is the pavement licensing policy and the setting of fees. Is that correct? And Councillor Fisher is going to be proposing this? Well, I'm assuming I'm proposing it.
Thank you, Chair. Yes. The pavement licence, the licensing committee met on the 26th of March to discuss this policy and voted unanimously to bring it to this meeting. And I must thank those in attendance on that day for their commitment to come to the meeting. You know who you are. Thank you very much. And I'll also take the opportunity to thank the officers for their clear and concise report. The policy is clearly set out on pages 21 through to 42, which everyone here will have read, and I would commend it to you to approve and adopt. And yes, indeed, Madam Chairman. If there are any questions, Officer Capps is at the back of the room.
Wow, that's a challenge for you guys. Do we have any questions on this topic? Okay. Happy to second it. So we've had it proposed and seconded, and sorry about that, Officer Capps. We have no questions for you. Shall we go to a vote then? All those in favour? Unanimous? Unanimous? Yep. Okay, unanimous. Do we have any matters that require exclusion of the press and public? No. No. Okay, guys, you can all go home now.